Okay, so now we will do the session week number 5. So it's about mainly how to reduce water activity. So if I ask you, how can we reduce water activity? Yes, how can we reduce water activity? Drying, okay, what else? Drying, what else other than drying? Adding salt, exactly, and adding sugar. And number 3, by concentrating. Yani we can either dry the food or we can concentrate. Yani if we boil the product at a very high if you boil the product at a very high temperature, yeah, okay. If you boil the product at a very high temperature for a certain period of time, we call this concentration, and concentration will reduce the water activity. So in this lecture, we'll define what is water activity. So I assume that you know what is water activity. So we'll do like just a revision. What are the objectives of water activity? How can we control it? What are the objectives of drying, and what are the different drying methods? So definitely you all know that microorganisms need water for growth. So microorganisms, they tend to absorb water, and this water, if you remember the phatom, and for moisture, water is very crucial for the survival of microorganisms. So moisture that is present in the food is a mixture of a free water and bound water. However, relative humidity is more the total amount of water present in the environment surrounding the food. The moisture is the total amount of water present in the food. So since the moisture is equal the free water plus the bound water, so the bound water is engaged in very strong covalent bondings. We don't really care about bound water. It's not threatening my product. What is threatening my product is the free water. So that's why only free water, which is related to water activity, is important for microbial growth. So water activity, what is water activity? It's amount of available water required for microbial growth. So if you look at this scheme, among bacteria, yeast, and molds, which one grow over a broader range of water activity? Molds, exactly. So that means that in order to control the molds, even if the water activity is 0.6, so kind of the product is dehydrated kind of, so the molds can still survive. However, for the bacteria, we require at least 0.8, 0.9 in order to start the growing of bacteria. So that's why we can say that every single microbial species has an optimum, a maximum, and a minimum level of water activity. So the spoilage bacteria, they do not grow below 0.91, and yeast and mold can grow as low as 0.8. So bacteria needs more moisture than yeast and followed by molds. And yeast and molds grow over a wider range of water activity than bacteria. So by decreasing the amount of water in the food, we can start by controlling the bacteria. So even if we decrease a small amount, we can control the bacteria. However, for yeast and molds, we really need to dry the product for a long period of time. So when the free water is and the food is reduced, what will happen? When the free water from the food is reduced, the free water from the cells will flow outside to establish equilibrium. In this case, we can notice that we do have a kind of a change of the texture. And if we look at the apricot and the dried apricot, can you notice any change with the texture, with the appearance? Girls, can you hear me? So again, if we compare the apricot, fresh and dried, is there any change in the texture? What kind of change? We have a kind of shrinkage of the cell, right? So بنلاقي انه النشبوش المجفف بنلاقيه مجعد هيك ومثل مسكر على بعضه. ليه؟ في shrinkage لانه في loss of water. بينما الفريش لا. The same concept is applicable to bacteria also. So the bacteria, when it will release its internal content of water, they will not be able to survive anymore. Okay, so no microbial growth can occur at the water activity below 0.6. So 0.6 is the value where below 0.6 we cannot ensure any growth of bacteria. So what is the importance of objective of reducing water activity? So first of all, we will reduce the growth of bacteria. We will reduce as well the germination of the spores, and will prevent the toxin released by toxicogenic or pathogenic bacteria. And how can we achieve the reducing of water activity? Drying, adding solute, adding salt or sugar, and concentrating, and freezing also. So freezing will reduce the water activity. How? Because when the water will be converted into ice crystals, it will not be anymore available to the bacteria for its growth. So food drying. So what is drying? Drying is the removal of the water from the food. So drying is a very old technique. So usually we used to use sun drying to dry our product. But in sun drying, we have a risk of rain, we have a risk of exposure to environmental pollution. So it's not very safe. So nowadays in all industries, they do have many advanced technologies for drying. So here we are saying that the preservation of food by drying mainly relies on lowering the moisture content to a point where the bacteria, they cannot survive anymore. But we need to know that drying is not lethal, so it does not destroy the bacteria, it controls. So again, here we are talking about controlling technique of bacteria. We have many types of products that are dried. We have meat, we have fruits such as apple, such as bananas, mangoes, apricot, coconut, and many other examples of grains also. So if we just have a look at this table at the moisture before drying and after drying, we can see a drastic drop of the moisture passing from 87 to 5. So if we're talking about the whole milk, the moisture of the product is 87, but the dried milk is 5%, etc. For the other examples, you can see for the egg, whole and white and yolk, also we have a drop from 74 to 2.9. So it's really useful to have dried eggs, because before we faced many problems with the liquid eggs. It's useful at all the levels. It's useful because it will extend the shelf life, so we can use the product over a longer period of time. So let's say about the milk, بس المشكلة إنه when you dry, so you have to enrich back, because the drying sometimes it will present some detrimental consequences on the losses of some nutrients. So what are the methods of food drying that we do have? We have natural dehydration called sun drying, and we have also the commercial drying. Among the commercial drying, we have the mechanical drying, the freeze drying, and the foam drying. I'm going to talk about every single one, starting with the sun drying. So as we mentioned, it's one of the earliest uses of food drying. It consists of exposing the fresh food to sunlight without any controlled temperature and any controlled relative humidity. If I ask you, do you think, what does dry exactly the food? Is it the air or the high temperature?
The high temperature.
Who can tell me? What does dry our hair? Okay, when you take a shower, what does dry your hair? Is it the air or the what are the factors being involved? Marwa, bravo, Marwa, both. So it's the hot air. It's the hot air. But together with the hot air, we have the circulation also. It's very important. So you notice when you dry your hair, you tend to do like this. Why? To ensure a better penetration of the hot air into your hair. It's the same concept applicable to the food. So here we need to figure out a way kind of circulation of the food to allow more penetration of the hot air to ensure a better drying of the free water. So here, if I'm saying about this, so one of the problems of sun drying, we are not controlling the temperature, we are not controlling the humidity. So sometimes the humidity can be very high, it can spoil the product. And sometimes the temperature could be very high, or it could be very low, so it can rain and you will spoil again the product. But still, in some countries, they are using it. So it can be used to dry grains, to dry fruits, to dry large quantities of products such as vegetables, or even meat or milk. The process is really slow, and we have a risk of rain with a high nutrient losses. But depending on the conditions, some spoilage bacteria also can grow during the sun drying. So if the aim of the drying is to control the bacteria, definitely sun drying is not the right option, because you are ensuring plenty of other factors enhancing the growth of bacteria. So if you're just removing the water, but you are ensuring high temperature, you are ensuring high humidity, so you are not definitely controlling the growth of bacteria. So this is the sun drying. Here we can see some photos about sun drying. So it's being done in open space with no controlled factors at all the levels. Okay. So now passing to the mechanical drying. So definitely here it's much more controlled. And at the level of the commercial drying, we'll see 3 different types of drying, starting with the mechanical drying. So here, first of all, one of the best advantage of this drying is the short period of time. So you can see drying can achieve in a few seconds to a few hours. Here it depends on the products, definitely. So here we have the tunnel drying. So can you see here the tunnel? We have a conveyor belt here. So the product will go into this tunnel, and here we'll be having a circulation of hot air inside in order to so we have a flow of hot air, that will removes the water. Okay, so one of the problems of this kind of drying is that basically, so let's say if I have a tunnel and the product is being inside the tunnel to get dried, so definitely the water on the surface, on the 2 surfaces, will be dried easily, but the water stick in the middle will be dried much more slower, because it's difficult to reach it. So that's why they improved the system into what is called roller drying. So here, roller drying, this is the roller. So it's a roller, it will circulate, and so it's like a roller drum, and we are applying a liquid, so in which a liquid is dried by applied a thin layer of كمان heated air. Okay, so هذا it can be used, let's say, for milk, it can be used for liquid mainly. So بنفوت الليكويد وبيكون في عنا هلاك a drum. Okay, بيبرم. The importance of circulating or rotating is the allowance of penetration of hot air. So, and here comes the spray drying. So spray drying is really sophisticated. It's now also used for milk powder, in which every single droplet, so the liquid will be sprayed into droplets, and every single droplets, okay, here will come into contact with hot air, and it will be converted into powder. So in a way, I can tell you that at the level of the commercial drying, so we have seen 3 different types of drying: the tunnel drying, the rotary drying, and the spray drying. So بالtunnel drying كان أول واحد اللي هو مثل tunnel conveyor belt وبمرقوا عليها وسخن. لقوا إنه there is no proper circulation. عملوا rotary drying to enhance the circulation, and then they figured out that we can, for liquid, invent a new technique where we dry drop by drop. So vegetables, fruit juices, milk, coffee, and tea, they can all be dried by mechanical means. So here it depends on the temperature, time of exposure. So sometimes some bacteria, when you completely dry them, they can die, but some others, they can be only injured. So it depends on the bacteria. So sometimes some of them can die, some others can be sublethally injured. And you should know that during storage, depending on storage conditions also, some microbial cell can grow at a very slow rate. But spores, generally, they can survive during the storage of dried products. So if you have like za'atar, thyme, or rice, or any kind of product, if it's contaminated with spores, even if it's dried in the storage, it can proliferate. So now I will pass to freezer drying. Who can tell me what is the advantage of freeze drying from its name?
البروتين بتحول
شو صبايا وينكم؟
دكتور
أنا نعمل له
نفريز الستروبري هتغير له الشيب نفسه ذاته.
So what is the advantage freeze
بتحافظ
drying.
على لون أو شيء شكل لون.
So the advantage of freeze drying, we are using two techniques to dry, because in the freezing you are converting the water into crystal to make it less available, but then you are converting the ice crystals to what? To vapor, to gas. Okay, so كيف بتصير؟ okay, بدي أقول لكم أول شيء إنه this process is really costly, because you are not only doing drying, you are doing two techniques, freezing and drying. So the process initially involves the freezing of the food, and then when you freeze the food, you are converting the water to ice crystals, and then you convert the ice crystals. When we pass from solid to gas, what do we call this? مين بيتذكر؟ When we pass from solid to gas, what do we call this? Okay, هعمل poll. Okay, so when we pass from solid to gas, what do we call this? A, condensation. B, sublimation. Okay, والبقوة. So when we pass from solid to gas, what do we call this? A, condensation. B, sublimation. Tanya, okay. Amal, زهراء ولا مرة جاوبت على شيء. ليه زهراء؟ زهراء, hello, can you hear me? زهراء.
دكتور
Okay.
ندى أنا هلأ جاوبت بس ما سمعت الأي شو والبي شو بس جاوبت كرمال
Okay. طب أقول لك when we pass from solid to gas, what do we call this? A, condensation. B, sublimation.
evaporation.
So it is sublimation. It is sublimation, okay, when we pass from solid to gas, okay? So شو عم نعمل نحن هون؟ بس keep in mind اسمه freeze drying. So freeze drying, we convert the water, okay, the free water to ice crystal, and then we pass, the ice crystal is solid. We pass under vacuum from a solid state to a gas state. We call this sublimation. So this method can be used for solid and liquid food. I will explain more on this method. But what is really important in this method is that the shape will not be affected much, okay? I will show you. Okay, so this is, the quality will be highly acceptable in the freeze drying. So the quality will not change that much. It's least affected by freeze drying as compared with natural and mechanical drying. So the natural or mechanical drying, the shape will be affected big time. Here, the shape will not be affected big time. Why? Because we are freezing and then we are drying. So as you can see here, we have a soup. So هالسوب شو عملنا فيها؟ هالسوب عملنا لها freezing. اوكي صار عندنا هول small ice crystals. اوكي وهالsmall ice crystals عملنا لهم شو drying by sublimation. حولناهم لشو؟ لvapor, لغاز. So again, this is the soup كانت liquid. عملنا لها freezing. المي اللي فيها صارت ice crystal. رجعنا عملنا شيء اسمه sublimation. عملنا vacuum pressure تنحول ice crystals حولناهم لغاز. راح الغاز وصار عندنا البرودكت dried without water. So here you should know that the microbial cells are being exposed to two stresses, the stress of freezing and the stress of drying.
Doctor?
So this scheme presents the different states of water. So this is the solid state, this is the liquid state, and this is the gas state, okay? So لازم نعرف نحن انه لما بنروح من solid لliquid شو بنسميها؟ melting. يعني لما نروح من ice لمي melting. العكس freezing. لما نروح من liquid لغاز بنسميها vaporization. العكس condensation. And when we go from ice to gas we call it sublimation والعكس deposition. So نحن بالفريز drying اللي عم نعمله هو sublimation. لازم نعرف انه هون في هذا البوينت ما بقدر قادرين تشوفوا بنسميه triple point. Triple point is a point اللي هو intersection between the three states. هو intersection between the three states. So at this point, okay, the three states are are equal. عم نشوف انه ثلاثتهم بصيروا at the same point. So نحن اذا بنزيح شوي لتحت عن هالبوينت، يعني اذا انا هون عندي pressure، اذا شوي بوطي البريشر، okay، وعلى هاي temperature بقدر يعني أنا if I want to pass from here to here what I should do if I want pass to here from here بوطي شوي pressure وبعلي شوي temperature. Okay, so I manipulate pressure and temperature in order to pass from solid to gas. This is called sublimation. So the fundamental principle of freeze drying is to convert the solid into gas. Okay, is to convert the solid into gas. So this is called sublimation. So the first step, I freeze, I convert liquid into solid. When I convert liquid into solid, it's called freezing. And then the solid, I apply vacuum pressure with controlling the temperature to pass from solid to gas. It's called sublimation. Do you have any question?
No.
Okay. So how does it work? This is a scheme showing how it works. So first of all, we have trays يعني مثل صواني بيمرق فيها البرودكت. اوكي بيكونوا heated trays. اوكي من بعدها بنروح على الفريزر نعمل freezing. After the freezing we go into the vacuum pump in order to convert the solid into gas. So the sublimation, it's the process and where solid changes will directly go into vapor without passing into liquid. يعني دغري بنروح من الكريستال للغاز ما بنمرق بليكويد phase. So again, this is the freeze drying. So this is the freezing at -20. So under low pressure, okay, the ice will evaporate into gas. Okay, so here we are saying that if we add water, okay, شو بنرجع للliquid state. انتوا لما بتشتروا ماجي سوب هي مش dried. لما بتزيدوا لها مي بترجع عادي للأوريجينال برودكت.
Yes.
Okay. فهون عم بيقولوا انه بالفريز drying we can recover the initial state. So foam drying it's a third type of drying. يعني حكينا عن sun drying رجعنا حكينا عن mechanical drying حكينا freeze drying ولا foam drying. Foam drying عنده a very little lethal effect on microbial spores. وقت اقول a very little lethal effect okay هعمل poll يعني yes or no, it will destroy bacteria or it will not destroy. Yes, it will destroy. No, it will not destroy. ليه حاسسكم تتنقلوا عن بعض؟ A very little lethal effect. So lethal يعني destruction. هي عندها a very little lethal effect.
يعني ما حتعمل destruction منيح.
So no no بس في كتير عم يكتبوا لي yes ليه؟ Okay, so it's no, it's not yes. So عندها a very little lethal effect, so it does not destroy bacteria that much. So how does it work exactly? So اسمها foam. So mainly we use it, let's say, for cream, for tomato paste, for puree. حيلا شيء بيقدر يعمل مثل mixture مع رغوة foam. وبنرجع كمان بنحط له application of high hot air. بس ما كتير بيستعملوه لأنه عنده a very little lethal effect. So between the three different methods, all of them they are being used. أكيد freeze drying by far is the best, but it's very costly because I'm treating 2 times freezing and drying. Among the mechanical drying, spray drying is very good, but rotary drying كمان is not is good. So according to the water contents of dried food, I can classify my food into what is called low moisture food and intermediate moisture food. So low moisture food is whenever the traditional food does not contain more than 25% moisture with a water activity between 0 and 0.6. An intermediate moisture food, it contains between 15 to 50% of moisture and a water activity between 0.6 and 0.85. So which one is more protected from bacteria, LMF or IMF?
Low moisture food?
أكيد low moisture food is much more protected. So in conclusion to this first part, so drying was one of the most energy and economically efficient preservation process, but when different preservation techniques أكيد are applied to drying, it gives a better product, because as I mentioned before, we cannot dry everything. هلا lately بدي لكم حتى عم نشوف مثل apple chips، مثل عم نشوف different types of product, they are drying everything, but the end consumer most of the time they prefers to rely on the fresh product. But it is a way. You cannot apply it alone. It should be أكيد applied with other techniques to maintain the product for a long period of time. So every drying method has its advantage and its disadvantage. It depends on the cost that you are willing to invest in your product. So using of salting and sugaring, it's another technique to reduce water activity, because water and sugar and even starch, they tend to bind the water. And when they bind the water, they will make it less accessible to the bacteria. So after adding salt or sugar, they tie up the water in the food. The concentration in the water outside the microorganism will become higher than the inside. هيدا الشيء طبيعي ليه؟ لأنه لما المي والسكر أخذوا، لما السكر والملح أخذوا المي، so صار في less water in the bacteria and more water outside the bacteria. So as a result, water essential for enzyme action and even for bacteria will not be anymore available, and this will control more the food. So example, it includes a salted fish, salted meat, sweetened condensed milk. And one of the disadvantages is that high concentration of salt and sugar شو عندها drawback with respect to the quality. That the product can become very salty or very sweety, وبالحالة the end consumer will dislike it. Plus إنه السalt والsugar إذا عنا diabetic patient أو عنا patient suffering from hypertension, they cannot consume sugar or salt, so it's also a disadvantage. So we cannot rely only on this technique. So خلصت هالlecture. بدي أسكر وأفتح تاني lecture، بس بدي أسألكم ماشي الحال؟
ايه
So عم تفهموا عم تفهموا منيح؟ عادي كأنه بالصف؟
كأنه بالصف.
Okay, great. طيب أنا رح سكر هيدي within like few minutes I will open the third session. Okay?
اوكي
يلا.